recording. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. Before we start, maybe you could introduce yourself and tell people who you are, what you do, etc., and then we could dive into some of the topics that you suggested that we talk about through email.
Yeah, man. My name's Jordan Ratanavong. I produce under the name Funk the Empire. I create funky dubstep music, and I'm also a law student at the University of Tennessee, studying criminal law as my main objective for law school. Been producing music for about 6 years. I just started really getting attention in the music industry right before I started law school, so it was kind of like a little bad timing type thing. I had my first main big release like the week before I started law school on Circus Records, and then since then I've been able to open my DAW about twice. So I let some of that momentum really burn out. But
Yeah, I imagine law school is pretty taxing. And
yeah, it was
probably requires a lot of your attention and energy.
It was way more than I expected. It's about 10 times the workload of undergrad, and undergrad was pretty challenging in and of itself.
What are you doing at? Sorry, law school is not an undergrad degree. It's like its own post-grad thing.
It's actually a doctorate degree. Yeah, it's considered a doctorate degree. So you're actually
do all lawyers have to do this? Like, is every lawyer
in America?
Basically,
yeah.
Okay, so you do your undergrad, and what is your undergrad usually before going to study law?
It can be anything. In America, it can be anything. As long as you have a bachelor's degree, you can get into law school.
So you could do a bachelor's degree in like music or audio engineering, and then go and get a
literally
law
anything.
Degree. That's wild.
Literally anything. They actually value other undergrad degrees besides like law and stuff that would be relevant to law school, because it brings in diversity into the classroom. You know,
that makes sense. What was your undergrad in?
My undergrad was in legal. I did 2 undergrad degrees. One in legal studies. It was a dual major: legal studies and criminal justice.
Okay, so related to law still.
Yeah. But I studied a lot of philosophy as all my electives, and did some music courses as some of my electives, because obviously I'm a producer.
Right. So one thing you mentioned to me in the email was that you started your life off as like very religious, and did you say you were training to be a pastor or something as well? And then you like went and did a philosophy degree, and you're like, now I'm a complete atheist. And I'm curious to know what the path was like there and what your thought process was like there.
Yeah, so whenever I was younger, as a teenager, I got in trouble a lot. I was an addict. I recognize that now. I was getting arrested in and out of juvie. I actually didn't even graduate high school. I had to drop out the week before graduation because my house got raided by the police for cannabis distribution and some MDMA distribution. So I was really headed on the bad path. And wait, sorry, what was the question again? You were talking about the life journey?
Well, you mentioned in the email that you were like super religious and you had a really religious upbringing.
Oh, yeah.
Then at some point you just,
So the deal with the courts was that I would go to a program called Teen Challenge. Have you heard about Teen Challenge?
No, what's that?
Teen Challenge is like a Bible boot camp. It's like a lockdown. It's basically prison, but they use the Bible to teach you and try to rehabilitate you.
Mm.
So it was there that I got doctrinized into Christianity, and at the time I became like extremely religious. Like, I was training to become a pastor. By the end of it, they were trying to get me to stay and work with them. I was their poster child. But now looking back at it, they were really kind of just like using me to raise money, because they would like send me on these trips every weekend to like go to different churches and like tell my story and talk to people, and we would raise like thousands of dollars, and that they would just pocket. So Yeah, it's kind of like a corrupt organization. If you look up Teen Challenge, it's not just for teens, it's for adults too, but it was founded in like the 50s for like teenagers who were bad off on drugs.
And how old were you when you went to this thing?
I was like with that thing that happened in high school with me getting raided, and I went straight from there to there. So I was fresh out of high school, had never had an adult job, had never
So
lived.
like 15 or something like that?
No, in America it's 17.
17. Okay, so you
Uh,
weren't actually like raised fully Christian or anything. It was like a thing that happened to you when you were 17 caused you to go super religious for a bit and then you
no,
switched. So,
I was raised Christian,
oh,
but
okay, I
not
see.
like hardcore. Like it was just always something that was in my family, you know. Like I'd go to church on
Mm.
Sundays, but as I became a teenager, I stopped going, and obviously I veered off into the what the Christians would call sinful activity. So I was a
Gotcha.
backslidden Christian, but I always still believed in the back of my mind that there was a God, and that there is a heaven or hell, and all those doctrines.
Right. And so what changed? Because you said now you're a atheist or you're agnostic. What was it
Yeah.
that that changed you from being like super religious and being raised religious to being like I don't believe in this stuff?
So when I got out of Teen Challenge, I was extremely diehard. Like when I was in Teen Challenge, I started the only books that it was insane. They would only let you uh, have a 5 minute phone call a week to people that they approved of. They would only let you write letters to people that they approved to, and they would only let you read books that they approved. So I read like a stack of just in Christianity it's called apologetics. Apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia, which is in the defense of. So I read a bunch of philosophical books in the defense of Christianity, and
Hmm.
so I a lot of those philosophical arguments, and they use some scientific arguments, which now I see are kind of flawed, to prove the existence of God and prove the existence of
What are some of
Christianity.
these philosophical arguments and what are some of the scientific arguments that they use to try and prove God is real?
Let's see. I have a note on the Callum cosmological argument, which I think was the strongest one in getting me to believe in a God. And the Callum cosmological argument goes premise one, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise two, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. So if the
Okay.
universe has a, yeah. So you understand the logic in that. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore it logically follows that the universe has a cause.
Yeah, but
And
I think it's a pretty big leap to then go, well, that causes obviously God, and that obviously means there's a heaven and a hell, and then like all of this other
well,
shit that kind of
yeah.
comes off the back of that. Right?
This argument only proves the existence of a like a theist, like a monotheist creator, not necessarily like a Christianity God or some of those other religious stuff.
Yeah, but I
But
mean
the
that cause could
idea
have
is
been
that,
anything, right? Like the cause could have been, one electron rubbing up against like some other type of thing, and all of a sudden that creates some giant explosion, or it could be any. I mean,
well,
we have no fucking idea how the universe started.
the rest of the
Could be a
argument goes.
simulation. Yeah.
The rest of it argument goes. So the universe is made up of space, time, and material, right? So whatever created space, time, and material has to supersede those three items, which would be a timeless, spaceless, and immaterial object, or uh, and it would have to be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial, and it would have to be all powerful to be able to create the universe. And it would have to be an intelligent mind with free will, because we don't see any other types of things creating stuff other than minds, right?
Right.
So whatever created a universe full of time, space, and matter would have to be timeless, spaceless, immaterial, and a mind with free will. And that is
I don't think the last bit makes sense. I don't think that that premise makes sense. Like it has to be spaceless, timeless, And what was the other one? It needs to be a mind with free
Immaterial.
will and
Timeless,
immaterial.
spaceless, immaterial, and it would have to be a mind with free will.
Yeah, it still seems like there's a lot of assumptions in there, I think. Like, why does it have to be spaceless or timeless?
Well, because it's creating space and time. So if before space and time was created, there is no space or time.
Yeah,
So
but maybe
it would
space
have
or
to be
time is a
spaceless.
byproduct. Kind of like we don't really know like much about consciousness, right? But we believe, I guess our best guess is that it's a byproduct of, having a brain and that is able to like see things and think things and whatnot. Like space or time could just be a byproduct of, some other electron banging into another thing that then causes
Yeah,
some explosion. And yeah, I don't
that's
know. I
true.
feel like it's
And
a big assumption to be like, well, because space time didn't exist, well then the thing before it must have been a mind with free will that created it. It just seems like a
well, their
pretty big
argument is
assumption.
that there's only two types of immaterial and timeless entities. There's abstract objects and personal minds. And we don't see abstract objects. Abstract objects would be like like the number one or the letter A, and then there's personal minds, consciousness. When we don't see abstract objects creating anything, so it must therefore be a personal mind that brought the
Maybe
universe
they
into
do
existence.
create something. If I say the number one to you and then I say add two to it, then that's created the thought of three in your mind, right?
Say that again.
If I say to you add one and two, then in your mind I've produced the thought three, and so
But
that has created something. It's not a thing you can touch. It's not tangible, but it
but that
exists, right? It
but
it,
that
it
would be your
exists. Like you,
personal mind creating that, because you're the one thinking it into existence.
yeah. That's what, but that is still creating something. I think.
Well, but the abstract object itself isn't creating anything.
But the abstract objects were one and two, right?
Mhm.
And then that created a thought for you three. And then if you say it's the number three, well, now that's a tangible wavefront property that I can hear. That is then created maybe another thought in my mind. So while it isn't like directly tangible, it can create a tangible output by inducing a thought in you that you can then act upon and do something with.
See, yeah, some of these rebuttals that you're bringing up are part of my journey, and the reason why I
Yeah,
decided
yeah.
that some of these arguments aren't ironclad as I thought they were. But of course, when I was in Teen Challenge, these were the only books I was allowed to read, right? So I wasn't able
Right,
to look
yeah.
at the other perspective. They kind of, if you even looked at the other perspective or even tried to, they would kick you out.
That seems
And
like it
you,
would have been a good thing, really.
yeah, in retrospective, but I mean, if I would have got kicked out, I would have went to jail. So
Oh, right.
I
Like
was
you
there by
had to be
court
there.
order.
The other
Yeah, yeah,
option was
yeah.
jail, basically. Oh, I got you.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
that's
there by
annoying.
court order. But
I see.
by the time I was done with the program, I was completely bought in. And it wasn't just the cosmological argument that got me. There's a whole list of arguments that really decided that I really decided that this is like God does exist. And a lot of it also has to you. I think you might have talked about this before. The power of music in worship and religion. You've talked about this before, right?
I
The
might
power
have.
of
Yeah, maybe.
how music can bring up emotion and make you like feel like you're feeling something spiritual, kind of.
I may have talked about this before, but I don't directly remember which conversation or it was a part of or what the context was.
Yeah, well, Christians use this a lot, especially in praise and worship. They'll use this power of music and singing it along and being together, and you start to feel like you're getting soaked up in the emotional rise of the drums, the drum build, and you're all feeling together, and everyone's like got their arms raised. It makes you feel like you're all connected, and your emotions are rising, and then they say you're feeling the presence of God. You know, so they kind of use music as
Like,
a
no,
manipulation
really,
technique.
Yeah, yeah, that's
There's
kind
a
of
there's a
wild. So,
documentary on Netflix called like Jesus Camp where they go into that specific thing in detail
mm,
about how they use that for children at like summer camps to really indoctrinate them. And
mm,
I don't want to offend any Christians, any of our audience that are Christians by saying all this stuff. There are some good things about Christianity. I just think that uh, it does, in my opinion, it does more harm than good in my life personally.
yeah, your experience personally. Yeah, I mean, same as well. Like, I don't want to offend any Christians either. To be fair, I don't necessarily think Christianity is wrong. I personally think there's things that make more sense, but at the end of the day, I don't think anyone really knows what the fuck is going on.
Yeah,
Like, it
yeah,
could be a god, it could be Buddhist beliefs could be right. Who knows? Like, we literally just don't have enough information to know with certainty um, which of whatever beliefs are or like sort of spiritual beliefs are true or not. But what was it exactly that like what was the moment you think where you were like, okay, this is bullshit, I'm done. Um, and I'm actually also curious, like what good values do you think religion has?
Well, when I got out of Teen Challenge, for the first like year, I enrolled in Bible college. I was on the road to become a pastor. I think I was only like a couple credits short of becoming a licensed pastor for the Assemblies of God, which is a denomination, a very popular Pentecostal denomination. And then I started watching a lot of Sam Harris debates. Have you seen a lot of his debates
Yeah,
against
I have.
Christians?
Yeah, I like.
Have you seen the one against William Lane Craig?
I might have. I like Sam Harris a lot. I really like his views on free will, and I really
Hmm.
like his views on lying. He's got some
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good
that book.
ideas on those
He
things.
wrote a whole book on lying and free will.
Yeah, the Christian stuff, I mean, I've watched a couple of his debates with Christian people. I don't really care about that stuff too much. I more care about the free will arguments and just like sort of moral framework stuff that he talks about. I
Well, the
really do
guy,
not like he has a lot of political conversations as well, and I just do not care about those.
yeah, he's kind of gone off the deep end a little bit on politics, a little bit too right wing for my taste.
Right
As
wing,
far,
you think?
I think he's gone pretty right as far as his some of his policies. He said that he would vote for a traditional Republican over Kamala in this latest election, which I
Right.
I thought I thought was a complete deviation from the old Sam Harris that we knew.
True. Well,
But
so yeah, what was it about his Christian debates you think that
yeah,
turned
one of
you off
his major
Christianity?
debates was against William Lane Craig, who is probably one of the most brilliant Christian theologists and
Is he
philosophers.
the Australian guy?
No, he's not Australian. He's American, but he received his PhD from Oxford in Europe in theology, and he's the one who he came up with the Calum cosmological argument or made popularized it. So I watched the debate with him, and I listened to Sam Harris's side of the argument about empiricism and rationality and lack of evidence, and that just sent me down a rabbit trail of well, back then this was like what 2000, probably like 2015, 2016, back when the new have you heard of the new atheist movement with
I
like
believe so,
Richard
but I'm not sure
Dawkins?
what it is.
It was like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett.
Okay, yeah, I
Uh,
know these people, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was like all those groups of people who were all releasing like atheist books one after another, and they were becoming extremely popular, and they were converting a lot of people to atheism. So I got kind of like sucked into all their books and started reading, and became really uh, I guess kind of, for lack of a better term, red pilled on the materialist side of things, empiricism, and how science is such a good force in the world that I think it's done way more good in the world rather than religion, as opposed to religion.
Hmm. Do you think science alone is enough to provide a framework for meaning and purpose in life, or does like philosophical, like spiritual things, provide a unique role, you think?
Well, that's a really deep question. No, I don't think that science can give us meaning. Uh, and that's one of the things that I was gonna tell you about as far as one of the benefits of Christianity, that it can impart meaning on our lives, and people can use it as a crutch to get through really dark times, and form a sense of organization and bond with their community. So that's
What do
one
you
of the.
think science lacks that religion has that helps with stuff like that?
I think science is like a rigid, like if it can't be reproduced, if it can't be shown physically, if the exact mechanism can't be nailed down for how this works, then we're just gonna toss it out the window, you know?
Right, but there is like branches of science that study human emotion and
Yeah.
class the human emotion and responses of humans as a tangible thing that we can show equals, whatever. Like for like psychology or you know, uh, therapy stuff like that, where they can, I'm sure they do tests where they do XYZ to this person, and then this person says, "Oh, I feel better," and then they log that as a data point for that person. So that stuff does exist, I think.
So what do you think? Do you think science can give us uh, a prescription for a well-lived life?
I think it gets you most of the way there, but I also think there's definitely like edge cases, uh, where science doesn't have any explanation for it. And really, religion doesn't either. And I think, yeah, there is some sort of like weird woo woo shit going on in the world that we don't understand for sure, I think, personally. Um, yeah, and I guess religion, the big benefit, it seems to me, is that people put their faith into the idea that if they're bad, they're going to go to some fiery eternal hell for the rest of their life, and that's going to be much worse than it is if they're just good. And I think if you truly believe this, the amount of fear that you must have of that is probably insanely massive. Um, like it seems like if you truly believe that, that's the scariest thing ever. I have to live eternity
Yeah,
in a fiery pit of hell.
exactly, man.
Um, so I think that can keep people on track for sure. But I also think that like if you just believe in science, like if I do XYZ to this other person, and I'm pretty sure that's going to make them feel bad, and therefore I won't do that because it's going to make them feel bad, and then I don't want to make anyone feel bad. And I think just looking at it logically like that can also be super helpful. And if you need this fear that you're going to go to hell and like live this eternal death sentence basically to treat people good, then maybe that says something deeper
Yeah,
about the people who need that. But I
exactly.
don't know, I mean, it's a yeah, it's a deep topic. I mean, everyone's different. I'm just talking about like the way that I think about it. Obviously, I'm
Some of my well, I'll start this off by saying I've read the Bible cover to cover several times, and it's been a while since I've read it, so I might butcher some of this, but there's not really that much evidence that in the Bible that hell even is an actual place. I think the word they use is Sheol, I believe. I'm probably butchered that, but it means it translates from the Greek word to place to like burn fire or to burn garbage. So a place where they would like throw garbage in to dispose of it. So I think that it was more like a metaphor. There's really not that many places in the Bible where they talk about an actual place of hell.
mm, interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this biblical stuff is all open to interpretations. There's so many denominations. There's so many translations of the actual Bible, and they're all translations into English from the original language, which was Arabic and Greek. So the New Testament was written in Greek. The Old Testament was written in Aramaic, and a lot of the translations there's some errors, and that's where some of this confusion comes in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There is like a lot of translation and from different languages that has maybe muddied the meanings of a lot of things over the years. I want to kind of switch topics to another thing that you said in the email, which was that you wanted to talk about your legal and moral take on why AI generated music doesn't violate copyright law and why you think AI music is a net good. So if AI generated music doesn't violate copyright law, do you think that there is any ethical considerations that creators and listeners should take into account when using AI music?
Well, so I'm in law school, but I'm not a lawyer yet, obviously. I haven't even taken an IP law class yet, so I have a rudimentary understanding of IP law, but I have
What is your
researched it.
understanding of IP?
Uh, I understand copyright law as there's 4 factors that courts consider when deciding copyright. So reproduction, distribution, derivative works, and public performance and display, which means reproduction would be the right to copy, like produce a physical copy, which you've talked about with an actual lawyer on your podcast. Distribution allows the copyright holder to have the exclusive rights to distribute their works, and derivative works allows the copyright holder to um, produce derivative works like sequels, off branches of their works, and then they're
Right, but
able to.
what is IP actually protecting?
IP is protecting the creative work. So
Right, and how do you get to a creative work?
creative work would be something more like music, something not factual. Like a factual work would be like something like nonfiction. That's less protected by copyright law as opposed to uh, uh, creative works like fiction and songs and music, which is has more protections under copyright law.
Yeah, the way that I kind of look at it from like the wider view is that copyright essentially protects a thought that you once had.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of ask, like, well, what is a thought and like what qualifies as a thought worth protecting? And can anyone truly own a thought or an idea and that kind of
Well,
thing? And
according
I
to
mean,
the
if you
U.S.
take,
legal system, they can.
yeah, 100%. I mean, if you ask Rick Rubin, he says if you have an idea to do something and then somebody else does that thing first, then you shouldn't think that they're stealing your idea. It just means that that idea has come into the cosmos and it's that idea's time to shine or whatever, and it's going to come through a creator, whether it's you or somebody else. Um, which like that's another one of those like woo-woo things that we can't prove or disprove, but for all we know, it's the truth. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just funny that like I don't know where like my thoughts come from when I'm writing music. Like as I'm like producing music, I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and I'm not
Mhm.
thinking like, here's the next thing I'm gonna do, here's the next thing I'm gonna do. It's just spontaneously thoughts are popping up in my mind, and I
Yeah.
have no idea where they come from. And then I do a bunch of shit, and then all of a sudden there's like a bunch of thoughts that I just so happen to have that now constitute as a thing that we can protect with law.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about how you're more of a reactive producer.
I think
So
everybody is.
I definitely am. I mean, maybe it's people like AU5 who hears melodies in his head in the showers and then goes out there and produces
But
them.
even still, like, where does that melody come from? Like, why does that melody pop into his head?
Well, that's a That's a deep question because that boils down to the question of what is consciousness and what is free will and what are these thoughts that are all thoughts are randomly popping into our head, right?
Yeah, this is where I think science kind of taps out
Fails. Yeah.
on. Yeah, exactly. And these are the things that I find the most interesting because there is no real answer to them, or at least no answer that we're sure of. And yeah, so I find this stuff kind of interesting. But so I'm curious anyway. Like going back to the topic is like
Mhm.
yeah, what is your moral take on AI generated music, and why do you think it's a net good?
So my moral take is that these AI algorithms like Suno and some of these other ones, what's the other big one that you use
Udio,
that you've talked a lot about? Stable
Udio.
diffusion, dance
Oh,
diffusion.
dance diffusion. That's not. Yeah, that's kind of a. That's not really the other big one. The two massive ones is Udio and Suno for sure.
So I think my understanding is that these programs or these algorithms, these models, are doing the exact same thing that we do as humans. They're looking for patterns and connecting dots based on a training set, which is exactly what I did to learn music production. When I was learning music production, I was dragging in Rusco tracks into my DAW and trying to recreate it, and then noticing, hey, he does fills on at the end of every 8 bars, or Dirt Monkey starts off his drops with a call and response with a big bass growl on the one, you know. And I use that to study and analyze, and then that combined with all of my influences from all the music that I've listened to in my life, uh, I derived a new work from that. Is that not what these models are doing?
Yes, but also like have you seen the video where these models are like just straight up outputting rapper tags? Like you know how
Mm-hmm.
producers will put rapper tags on their beat. It'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
DJ Khaled, another one, or something like that. There's definitely been like a bunch of outputs where AI models will just output
Mm-hmm.
rapper tags, which
It's
is
my
like a
understanding.
highly identifiable feature. Sorry, go on.
It's my understanding. Well, sorry to interrupt, but it's my understanding that that only happens when a certain song is overrepresented in the training set.
Right, but I mean, it just as it wouldn't be legal for you or I to take DJ Khaled's rapper tag and generate it, throw it in one of our songs.
Mhm.
Um, why does it then become? It can't possibly then become fair use for an AI to just accidentally do that, right?
That's true. That's true. We were talking about the ethical argument first, though, right? We can go on
Yeah,
to the legal
but
argument. The legal argument's a whole other thing.
is it ethical then for you or I to take DJ Khaled's rapper tag and put it into our song?
Ethical? Well, do you believe in ethical objectivism or relativism? Because I mean, it
I
can
mean,
be ethical.
it's relative to depends who you're talking to, right? But
Mhm.
for me personally, I would not take a rapper tag and put it in my song unless I was like
Yeah,
memeing
no,
on,
I wouldn't
you
either.
know, yeah. But so I guess that's kind of where these AI things start to get into ethically weird territory because they do things based on their training data. But the thing is, like when a human listens to a song and tries to recreate something, in general, I'm not saying all people are like this, but most people are probably going to know, all right, I probably can't use that rapper tag. I probably can't just cut this Roscoe bass out of this tune and use it because that would just be morally or ethically a weird thing to do and also illegal from a legal standpoint.
Although I
Um,
have been watching a lot of interviews, you know who Excellent Sound is?
yep.
Yeah, they've been doing a podcast lately, and they just interviewed Kashmir, and he talked about in the early days. Just, I mean, I bet a lot of producers did this before sample packs were huge. Were just straight up stealing snares and drums from other people's productions.
Hmm.
So, do you think that's ethical?
Well, I mean, Kashmir has been like found to be stealing Virtual Riot samples and releasing them in packs and stuff. So I don't really think he's a good example. And no, I don't think
Really,
he does. I think he does some unethical shit for sure.
I wasn't aware of that. That's
Stealing
interesting.
someone's kick or snare and putting it in your tune, I think it depends. Like now, I don't think it's so much of a problem because there is just no shortage of kicks and snares at this point. Like there's a good chance the kick that you're stealing was like a sample that somebody else used from a pack anyway. And kicks and
True.
snares, I don't think is that. I think the more important things to not steal from other artists is like their kind of signatures. Like the stuff that makes their music theirs, which usually is not the kick or the snare.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually like some synth sound or some specific technique that they're
Or a
using or whatever.
complete drop idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you?
Like someone's flow or something like that.
Yeah.
That's I think where the AI stuff gets a little weird is because it doesn't know to not do that. So it'll just basically it won't interpret stuff the same way that you or I will, where we'll listen to a ton of shit, get a bunch of ideas and go like, all right, now I'm going to make it my own. It'll just like get a bunch of shit and just compile it, as far as I can tell, in a way
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think a human is necessarily, because a human I think is like taking these like ethical and moral considerations in when they're trying to recreate something or make their own tune influenced by whoever other artists they think are cool. And obviously certain things will weight differently in a human's mind to in an AI's mind. A human might go like, well, I specifically like this artist a lot and I specifically like that artist a lot. Whereas, yeah, I don't know. I It's obviously a gray area and there's no correct answer to this, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, there's several. I think there's like a dozen lawsuits that are playing out right now
Yep.
that will decide this soon.
So do you think because it's obvious now, I think that Suno and Udio both trained um, using just like I think they said in some press release or something, data from the free web or something like that, or data from the open internet or something, which basically means they trained it on anything they could find. Do you think artists should be required to explicitly opt in to AI training data sets? And how do you reconcile the lack of consent from creators in most existing models with the idea of ethical AI development?
Man, that's a hard question to answer. Because you have to balance the use of this technology and the innovation that it's going to bring to the industry versus creative rights, right? So I think that a good solution would be a licensing system for producers or uh, copyright holders to allow these these companies to license training sets. But the courts will decide whether or not training on these data sets is fair use. Fair use is an affirmative defense, which means they're admitting that yes, we are violating copyright law, but we're allowed to because of this defense of fair use, and that's what all of these cases are boiling down to: is whether or not it's fair use.
Hmm. And has there been a final judgment on that yet?
No, no, there hasn't been. I'm sure they're getting close, but some of these cases can be drawn out. There was an old case uh, where the Writers Guild or an Authors Guild sued Google for digitizing their books, and that was considered fair use. They digitized their books for their search engine, and that was
Hmm.
considered fair use. So some people are using that argument uh, uh,
It's
to
a
say
little
that,
different, I think, like being able to find a book now just because the words in it have been digitized and now it becomes a searchable term versus digitizing it so they can sell a subscription to people to be able to access parts of those books whenever they want, which is essentially what Suno and Udio are doing.
yeah, yeah. So with fair use, here I've got this written down. Courts consider four factors to determine whether a use qualifies as fair use. One, purpose and character of the use. Is it transformative, which means it adds new meaning, expression, or utility, or is it purely commercial? 2, nature of the copyrighted work. Creative works like music are more protected than factual works, which we went over. Amount and substantiality of the portion used. Was a significant or critical portion of the work used? And then 4, effect on the market. Does the use harm the market value of the original work? I think that fourth one is what's going to determine whether or not the courts decide whether or not this is fair use. The effect of the original work on the market. Is it competing with these copyright holders' original works, like on Spotify, you know? Is it taking
Not on
away from the
Spotify, but
value? Are they losing
maybe
money over it?
yeah, maybe not. I mean, definitely, I think the area that will get impacted the most first is stuff like commercials and you know, just like general work for like writing jingles for stuff or like scoring movies, maybe stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be like where music is the initial thing. It kind of can just be a bedding under the background of some other stuff happening. I think it'll take over some of that pretty quick. But the first thing you said about fair use is like, is it commercial? And in Udio and Suno's case, it is, right, because they're selling a subscription to be able
Yes, it
to sell
is.
outputs, and you can only output like one thing unless you subscribe and for $20 a month or whatever, and then
Yes, that's true, but that's just only one factor. The courts will use all the other factors to determine, and they do it by case basis. So even if it is commercial, that still might not mean that it's not fair use. They would also factor in the other 3 factors. So I think the biggest one they use is, does it harm the market? Does it harm the market value of the original work?
What kind
So
of
if
precedents do you think should be set to prevent exploitation while still allowing for the innovation?
I think that the licensing system would work as a good middle ground to protect everybody. You know, everybody gets their
Right,
fair
the
share,
artists make
they
some
get their
money,
cut.
but then the AI people also are like, you know, taking some of the money that they're making, paying the artists to have their stuff as training data and stuff like that.
Then again, it could stifle the innovation in the field. So you have to take that into account as well. If they're having to pay, I mean, that could add up. If they're training these things on millions of data sets or millions of works within the data set, then that could add up, and they would have to raise more money. If they can't raise the money, then the model's not as good, and so forth.
Well, how do you feel personally about, like, let's just say that we know for a fact that your last EP was included in both Suno and Udio's training data sets? How would you feel about that personally?
No, I wouldn't mind at all.
Fair enough.
In fact, I used a little bit of AI for the EP before my last one. I used ChatGPT to write what I typed in my idea for kind of like a little bit of some lyric tags, and then it wrote a better version of it. So I've been using AI for my music for quite a while, just to kind of enhance it a little bit, you know, like make my idea just a little bit better.
Fair enough.
You're
How do
also
you
aware that Foster Damas is partnered with Suno. He's like one
Yeah,
of
I
the
knew that.
founders.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
It's fine. I mean, yeah, I I don't really have that much of a problem with AI stuff. I think eventually it's gonna get to a weird place, and we're gonna have to, like, I'm not even worried about the music side of it so much. I'm worried about like when AI gets so good that it can do everything we're currently doing better than we can do it. I'm also worried about like when they potentially like connect very good coding engine. Like, for example, there's this IDE I've been using lately called Cursor, which is just it's basically an IDE like VS Code or whatever, except it has a little agent in there, and you can be like, hey, write me some JavaScript to do this, and it does a really good job. And it can write any language, like it can write, you know, C#, it can write Python, whatever you want. And it does a really good job. Like, I've had it write me a lot of code, and executed it, and within one or two tries, it will get it pretty damn right. And the thing it concerns me more that we're going to connect something like that to the internet that can execute and edit its own code. And once we do that, that could create a way bigger problem than the music stuff, I think.
Yeah.
It's definitely an existential threat, I think.
AI, as I mean, that's a whole different topic about the use of or the threat of general AI. I was just listening to Sam Harris's podcast on the problem of alignment and whether or not our interests as humans would be aligned with a general AI. That's some scary stuff to think about.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like if you're building a house and you're like, I'm going to build this house, and there's this giant ant mountain right where you need to build your house, you're just going to knock it over with no real
Exactly.
thought for whether or not you should worry about this ant colony's life, right? I feel like AI could get to a point like that where it's not necessarily it's not necessarily going to want to take us out just for no reason, but it might be like, I want to achieve this task and humans are in the way of it, and it'll just wipe us out to like achieve its task and not really think too hard about it.
The thought experiment that Sam Harris used was something like, say that we as humans found out that there was this virus that was spreading between dogs, and we can only get it from dogs. They were jumping from dogs to humans, and then we decided overnight that we have to, for the survival of humanity, to euthanize all dogs the next morning. The dogs wouldn't understand what's going on. They would just wake up one morning and they would be exterminated. And that's how smart general AI could become. And we just wouldn't understand why or their reasons, and they would just wipe us all out just because we've become a threat to them in some way that we can't understand because they're millions, trillions of times smarter than us, you know?
Yeah, it's quite possible that could happen as well. Going back to the AI music stuff though, how do you respond to concerns that AI generated music threatens the livelihood of artists by devaluing their creative contributions, and particularly when AI is starting to get to a point where it can mimic humans in music pretty accurately?
Oh, you're referring to like some of those really popular like Drake songs that were put on Spotify that sounded pretty similarly close to Drake.
No, I don't know about those, but I'm just in general. Let's say that music is threatening the livelihood of artists. Like, we're not quite there yet, honestly, but like, let's say we're there in 6 months and all of a sudden AI music is able to make better music than humans, and all of a sudden a bunch of people are out of jobs because AI can just do it better and faster. What do you think about that?
It is a little scary. Uh, Sometimes I think about like, man, I've spent so many hours learning this craft, uh, and then some computer's going to come along and just create a track far better than mine instantly. And will people prefer that over my track? I don't think so, but it's possible. People do. Let me put it this way: we can produce synthetic diamonds, right? But yeah, we can produce synthetic diamonds in the laboratory that are perfect. But people still prefer ones from nature because it's imperfect, and it gives it a sense of it's special, it's rare, it's different. And people there's people definitely put more value uh, on the organic diamonds over the synthetic diamonds. I think that it will be the same way with music. I think people will still value human created music over AI music, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. The way I've been looking at it is like with a chess analogy, which is that we have these chess engines now that are rated like twice as good as our best chess player, which is I think Magnus Carlsen, probably still, or Hakuru Nakamura or something like that. Um, we have the best chess players we have are rated at 2800 ELO. ELO is the rating system
Yeah,
for
I
measuring
love
a
chess. I'm
chess
a chess
player's.
player as well.
Right. So yeah, so Magnus Carlsen's like 2800, and I think Stockfish and what's the other one now? Lila or something like that. They're both like up to 3800 or so now. They're insane. Like worlds above. Like Magnus Carlsen could never beat this thing in a game of chess, basically. Um, and we still hold chess tournaments, and we still want to go and watch the best chess players play each other in chess.
Exactly.
Even though whilst we're watching them play chess now, we now have this meter next to the board that's able to tell us if their moves were good or bad and exactly how much advantage each player has and stuff. So in that sense, it's like it's added something to the game from an audience's perspective. Now we can watch a game of chess and know exactly whether or not the move the person just made was good or not, and with full certainty. And whilst they're playing the game, the commentators can go through what the best lines are to play next and stuff, whereas previously none of that was possible. So yeah, I definitely think there is something to be said about humans liking human stuff more so than computer generated stuff, because we could just generate like an endless amount of chess games that are perfectly played chess games, like more perfect than any human played chess game. And we could just watch these over and over again, but people still want to watch chess tournaments with humans playing chess.
Yeah, exactly. I think that AI, as far as for music producers, it's going to become a tool, and it's already helped me a lot with music. Have you used any of the Sonable products? Have you
Yeah,
heard of
the smart
Sonable?
reverb stuff and the smart
Yeah, yeah,
EQ and all
yeah,
that.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love their stuff, dude. They're so good. And they claim to use data sets and training sets to train their plugins. And I think more tools like that are going to keep coming out and becoming better and better, and it's going to make our lives easier. I envision in the future like a DAW that would just be able to just mix your song down after you input some references. That would be amazing, right?
Yeah, there is some stuff like that. Like, do you know about Matchery? Is that it's basically what all the online AI mastering services are using, and I think they just trained it on a bunch of pre-masters and then a bunch of masters, so it can see the difference between what a pre-master and a master looks like, and then applies some sort of processing to it to try and get your song close. And it's not as good. I mean, Ben Jordan just did a video on it, and he did a like an anonymous survey thing where it would randomize the different masters in for everybody who answered the survey, and you had to just rank them, I think, from 1 to 7. And I think the two human masters still got the highest ratings, and all the AI masters were ranked lower. So it's still not as good for sure, but it's getting there, and it will get there, I think.
I, these new AI plugins are going to automate some of the more tedious tasks that producers don't seem to enjoy. You know, like I don't know about you, but do you enjoy the tedious mixdown process?
I do
Or
actually, yeah,
you do? Well, a lot of producers
I
don't.
do.
They like the creative. When you're first starting the song, and they would rather
I know
have the
I
rest
really
automated.
I really like the grind, honestly. Like when it comes to doing all the fine touches and the edits and all of that stuff. Like I know in my mind whilst I'm doing it, I'm like, this is a pain in the ass, but because I know it's worth it, and because I've done it so many times, and I know the end product is so much better than if I don't do it,
Okay. Well, let me
I
ask you
still feel
this:
like I'm making progress while I'm doing it, and I like it. Yeah.
what if we had an AI plugin that was trained on all of Mr. Bill's mixdowns, and you could just do the exact same mixdown you would have come up with by yourself with just a press of a button? Would you use
I
it?
would, yeah, I would, but I think I don't think that I would press it and call it a day. I think I would press it like 40, 50 times and take different parts of each one that I liked more or less, and I would still, I think, go through the, kind of like standing on the shoulders of giants. I would use these tools to try and reach a new height with things rather than just like hit the button and call it a day, which is basically what I've been doing with AI tools now. It's like you can use an AI to generate a ton of ideas, and
Mhm.
then from there, like, generate some new flows out of it by like rendering them all to stems and cutting them all together or something like that. Um, so I think tools that allow us to do something in music faster and easier will just mean that you can get to hopefully a better product. It's kind of like, for example, if you took a dubstep track from today, like one of Skrillex's tracks, and played it to somebody in the 1960s, like, yes, it might have been possible to make a Skrillex track from 2020 in 1970, let's say 1980 maybe. It might have been possible to recreate one of those back then, but the amount of money it would take and the amount of engineering it would take and the amount of like just expertise and knowledge it would take is just so insane. Whereas today, it's like anyone can, not anyone, but like a lot of people can produce stuff that's almost of that quality very quickly. And yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
That's true. Where do you see? Would you think that it would be, because a lot of uh, producers have a problems with using presets. Where how do you see the field of AI being integrated with synthesizers going to be able to just enter a prompt and then come out with any patch you want? Would you feel comfortable with just doing that and then putting that in your song and not?
Well, we already kind of have that with Synplant too. And in general, I need to hit regenerate on it a bunch of times before I feel like I get to something good. Um, because obviously, like, whatever you put in your song has to match up with your current vision and what thought you're currently having for what you want the song to be. And 99% of the time, it feels like AI doesn't know what you're thinking, so it doesn't know exactly what type of thing to generate. So you need to generate a ton of stuff before it gets to something close to what you were thinking about adding, I guess.
True, but it will get better, obviously.
Right, but it will never know what you're thinking, I guess, until we get something like Neuralink in our brains, and then in that case, maybe then you could press the button once and it'd be fine. But
Well,
yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
know. My
the prompt feature would be to let it know what you're thinking.
right, yeah, I still feel like the prompting stuff is. I don't feel like it's ideal. I feel like you want parameters, like to be able to control like how dense a thing is or how not dense it is, how melodic or not it is, stuff like that, and maybe a prompt as well. But I feel like currently just having a text input prompt is like uh, it's kind of, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. And I would like to have more parameters and control for this reason exactly. But yeah.
Have you been bombarded by ads for that synth GPT?
I think so. I've definitely heard of it.
Yeah, I've been bombarded by these ads for this synth, and it turns out that you enter a prompt and then it spits out a preset. It's a complete
Right.
scam. It's you just enter a prompt and then it goes through like sample. It's like a rompler. It goes through samples that
Mm.
are tagged and then brings up something that fits the tag. And they're marketing it as something like ChatGPT, where you're entering a prompt and it's coming up with a fresh new preset.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit like that where people are trying to capitalize on the AI boom shit right now. But
Yeah,
anyway, man, it's been about an hour, so we should probably wrap this up. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was nice to chat. And where can people find you?
yeah. I post most of my updates on Instagram, Funk the Empire. I'm working on a new EP right now. I've got some collabs going on with Father Funk. You know who Father Funk is?
Yep, Canadian guy.
Yeah, yeah. He's done some work with Boogie T and Dirt Monkey's label. Me and him have a collab on the new EP. And then Noetica, who's done some stuff with Subcarbon. Me and him have a collab on the new EP. And I'm trying to get that done. I have a month in between before my next semester of law school starts. I'm trying to finish this EP. So I'll be putting out some updates on that. And hopefully I'll get it out before school starts.
Sick. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was nice to meet you. I appreciate it.